Beneath the bustling streets of New York City lies a hidden world of tunnels, pipes, and forgotten passages that form the circulatory system of America's greatest metropolis. This subterranean labyrinth has been carved, blasted, and excavated over more than a century, creating a three-dimensional puzzle of infrastructure that few people truly understand in its entirety. The men and women who work in this underground realm are a special breed: engineers, tunnel rats, and construction workers who navigate the dark spaces between the foundations of skyscrapers and the bedrock of Manhattan Island. But even these experienced professionals have never encountered anything quite like what happened during the summer of 2017, when senior tunnel engineer Dr. Catherine Kate Sullivan vanished without a trace while supervising excavation work on the 2nd Avenue subway extension. 7 years later, the discovery of her sealed helmet in an impossible location would uncover a mystery so profound that it would shake the very foundations of everything we thought we knew about the hidden history buried beneath New York City. Catherine Sullivan was widely regarded as one of the most brilliant tunnel engineers of her generation, a woman who could read geological surveys like poetry and visualize complex three-dimensional underground structures with an almost supernatural clarity. At 38, she had already supervised the construction of major infrastructure projects in 6 countries, but her true expertise lay in the unique challenges posed by New York City's incredibly complex subsurface environment. Kate understood better than almost anyone how the city's underground was a palimpsest of history, layers upon layers of construction, abandoned tunnels, forgotten burial grounds, and remnants of the original Dutch settlement that had been built over and around for nearly 4 centuries. Born and raised in Brooklyn, Kate had been fascinated by the city's underground infrastructure since childhood, when her father, a retired sand hog who had worked on the construction of the original subway tunnels, would tell her stories about the strange things workers discovered deep beneath the streets. Tales of colonial-era artifacts found embedded in bedrock, unexplained cavities that seemed to predate European settlement, and tunnel sections that appeared on no official blueprints but clearly showed evidence of sophisticated engineering. These stories had inspired Kate to pursue degrees in both civil engineering and urban archaeology, making her uniquely qualified to navigate the historical and technical challenges of modern subway construction. Kate's specialty was what she called archaeological engineering, the delicate process of building new infrastructure while preserving or documenting the historical artifacts and structures that inevitably turned up during excavation. She had developed innovative techniques for surveying and mapping underground spaces using ground-penetrating radar, 3D laser scanning, and other advanced technologies that allowed construction crews to work around historical finds without destroying them. Her work had uncovered everything from Revolutionary War-era tunnels used by George Washington's spy network to sections of the original aqueduct system that had supplied water to early Manhattan. In the summer of 2017, Kate was serving as the lead geological engineer for the 2nd phase of the 2nd Avenue subway expansion, specifically overseeing the excavation of a complex tunnel junction beneath the intersection of 125th Street and Lexington Avenue in East Harlem. This particular section of the project had been delayed multiple times due to the discovery of unexpected underground structures, a network of tunnels and chambers that appeared to be much older than any known construction in the area. Initial archaeological surveys had dated some of the stonework to the early 1600s, suggesting the possibility of Dutch colonial infrastructure that had never been officially documented. The tunnel system that Kate's team was investigating defied easy categorization. The engineering was sophisticated, with carefully engineered ventilation shafts, drainage systems, and structural supports that demonstrated a level of expertise that seemed inconsistent with early colonial construction capabilities. Most puzzling of all, the tunnels appeared to connect to natural cavities in the Manhattan schist bedrock that showed signs of artificial modification, chambers that had been enlarged and reinforced with a stoneworking technique that didn't match any known European or Native American methods. Kate had been working with a team of archaeologists from Columbia University to document and understand these mysterious structures before construction could proceed. Dr. James Mitchell, the project's consulting archaeologist, later described Kate as being almost obsessed with the tunnel system, spending long hours studying the stonework and trying to understand how and why these passages had been created. She had developed a theory that the tunnels might be connected to an even larger network of underground spaces that extended throughout Manhattan, possibly representing a forgotten chapter in the city's pre-colonial history. On July 23, 2017, Kate descended into the tunnel system with a small crew of specialist workers to conduct what was supposed to be a routine geological survey of a newly discovered chamber. The team included 2 experienced miners, a surveyor, and a graduate student in archaeology who was documenting their findings. Kate was equipped with her standard safety gear, a sealed atmosphere helmet with integrated communications and recording equipment, a full-body safety harness connected to emergency retrieval lines, and monitoring devices that tracked her location and vital signs in real time. The chamber they were investigating was located approximately 60 feet below street level, accessible only through a narrow shaft that Kate's team had carefully excavated over the previous weeks. Initial scans had suggested the chamber was roughly circular, about 20 feet in diameter, with what appeared to be carved symbols or decorations on the walls. Kate had been eager to examine these markings personally, as preliminary photographs had shown geometric patterns that didn't match any known colonial or Native American artistic traditions. At 2:47 p.m., Kate's team reached the chamber and began setting up their equipment for detailed documentation. Kate's voice, recorded by her helmet's communication system, can be heard describing her initial observations to the surface crew. The chamber is definitely artificial, but the construction technique is unlike anything I've seen before. The walls appear to be carved directly from the bedrock, but with tool marks that suggest precision instruments. I'm seeing geometric patterns that... Wait, there's something else down here. What happened next is captured on Kate's helmet recording, but the audio and visual data from that point forward defies rational explanation. At exactly 2:52 p.m., according to the timestamp on the recording, Kate can be heard describing what she calls impossible architecture, walls that seem to extend far beyond what the ground-penetrating radar had indicated, passages that appeared to spiral downward into areas that should have been solid bedrock, and most disturbing of all, artificial lighting that had no visible source but illuminated the chamber with a soft, blue-white glow. The recording captures Kate's growing excitement and confusion as she explored deeper into the chamber system. "I'm following what appears to be a spiral staircase carved into the bedrock," her voice reports. "This shouldn't be possible. According to all our surveys, I should be hitting the foundation of the building above me, but instead I'm finding more chambers, more passages. It's like this place exists in more space than should physically fit in this location." The surface crew, monitoring Kate's progress through her safety line and radio communications, became increasingly concerned as her reports grew more bizarre. The GPS tracker in her equipment showed her position as stationary in the original chamber, but her voice description suggested she was moving through an extensive underground complex. More troubling still, the safety line that should have limited her movement to a radius of 30 feet from the entry shaft showed no tension, as if Kate were somehow moving freely despite being securely anchored. At 3:15 p.m., Kate's communications took on an urgent tone as she described encountering what she called temporal displacement indicators, areas where her equipment readings suggested different time periods were occurring simultaneously. "My instruments are showing impossible data," she reported. "Carbon dating sensors are giving me readings from multiple eras at the same time. I'm getting colonial period, pre-Columbian, and something much older, something that predates known human habitation of this area by thousands of years." The final coherent transmission from Kate came at 3:23 p.m., when she reported discovering what appeared to be a control room or command center deep within the chamber system. "I'm in some kind of technological facility," her voice recorded. "The walls are covered with what look like control panels, but the technology doesn't match anything I recognize. It's as if someone built an advanced facility here centuries before the technology should have existed. I'm going to investigate further and, oh my God, there are other people down here. I think I see other construction workers, but they're wearing equipment that looks different from ours. They're trying to communicate with me, but..." The transmission ends abruptly, with Kate's voice cutting off mid-sentence. The surface crew immediately attempted to retrieve her using the safety line, only to discover that the line, while still securely anchored at the surface, terminated in empty air approximately 20 feet down the shaft. Kate herself was nowhere to be found, and more disturbingly, the chamber that the team had spent weeks excavating showed no signs of the extensive passages and architectural features that Kate had described in her final transmissions. The search and rescue operation that followed was one of the most intensive underground searches in New York City history. The FDNY's specialized rescue units were called in, along with experts from the Army Corps of Engineers and every available piece of equipment for mapping and exploring underground spaces. The entire tunnel system was sealed off and subjected to exhaustive examination using ground-penetrating radar, sonar mapping, and even experimental 3D imaging technologies borrowed from NASA's Planetary Exploration Program. Despite these unprecedented efforts, no trace of Kate was ever found. The chamber where she had vanished showed no signs of the extensive underground complex she had described in her final transmissions. Geotechnical analysis confirmed that the area below the chamber consisted of solid Manhattan schist bedrock, with no natural or artificial cavities large enough to accommodate a human being. It was as if Kate had simply vanished into stone. The official investigation, led by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration in conjunction with the NYPD, concluded that Kate had likely suffered a catastrophic equipment failure that had caused her to become disoriented and trapped in an unmapped section of the tunnel system. The theory suggested that she had somehow become separated from her safety line and had fallen into a hidden crevice or natural cavity that subsequent surveys had failed to locate. While this explanation satisfied the requirements of official reports, it failed to account for the detailed recordings of impossible architecture and technological installations that Kate had transmitted during her final hour underground. The incident effectively ended the 2nd Avenue subway expansion project in that area, as the mysterious circumstances of Kate's disappearance raised serious safety concerns about continuing excavation work. The tunnel system was sealed with concrete, and construction was rerouted to avoid the problematic geological formations that had complicated the original plan. Kate's disappearance became a sobering reminder of the dangers faced by workers in New York's underground construction projects, though many who had known her personally suspected that the official explanation failed to capture the true nature of what had happened to her. Kate's family, led by her sister, Dr. Rachel Sullivan, a quantum physicist at NYU, refused to accept the official findings and conducted their own investigation into the circumstances of the disappearance. Rachel had been fascinated by Kate's theories about the historical anomalies found in New York's underground infrastructure, and had helped her sister develop some of the advanced scanning technologies used in her archaeological engineering work. Using her background in theoretical physics, Rachel began to develop alternative theories about what might have happened to Kate in that mysterious chamber system. Dr. Mitchell, the project archaeologist, provided Rachel with copies of all the documentation that Kate's team had compiled about the anomalous tunnel system. The historical evidence painted a picture of underground construction that seemed to span multiple time periods and technological eras, as if different groups had been building and modifying the same spaces across centuries or even millennia. Some of the stonework showed tool marks consistent with medieval European techniques, while other sections displayed precision that suggested modern machining capabilities. Rachel's analysis of the acoustic and visual data from Kate's helmet recordings led her to develop what she called the dimensional overlay hypothesis, a theory suggesting that certain locations, particularly those with specific geological and electromagnetic properties, might exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. According to this theory, Kate hadn't vanished into hidden tunnels but had somehow accessed different time periods or dimensional states that occupied the same physical space as the chamber where she had been working. This theory gained support when Rachel discovered that the Manhattan schist bedrock in the area where Kate disappeared contained unusually high concentrations of quartz and other minerals known to exhibit piezoelectric properties. When subjected to mechanical stress, these minerals could generate electrical fields that might, under specific conditions, create the kind of space-time distortions described in theoretical physics. Rachel hypothesized that the construction work itself might have created the precise conditions necessary to activate these geological features. 7 years after Kate's disappearance on July 23, 2024, construction crews working on a completely different project, the renovation of an old subway tunnel 2 miles away in Midtown Manhattan, made a discovery that would restart the investigation into Kate's fate. During routine maintenance work in an abandoned section of track near Grand Central Terminal, workers found an object that shouldn't have been there: Kate's helmet, still sealed and apparently intact, sitting on a maintenance platform in a tunnel that had been sealed since the 1940s. The helmet was immediately recognized by one of the workers, Tommy Morrison, whose father had been part of the original search and rescue team that had looked for Kate 7 years earlier. Tommy contacted the authorities, who secured the scene and called in specialists to examine the mysterious discovery. The helmet appeared to be in perfect condition, showing no signs of the wear, corrosion, or damage that would be expected after 7 years in the humid environment of an abandoned subway tunnel. Dr. Rachel Sullivan was called in to examine the helmet, which she confirmed was definitely the same equipment that Kate had been wearing when she disappeared. The serial numbers matched, and the helmet bore the same minor scratches and modifications that Kate had made to optimize her equipment for underground work. Most significantly, the helmet's internal recording systems were still operational and contained data that had been recorded continuously for the entire 7-year period since Kate's disappearance. The data recovered from Kate's helmet would prove to be the most extraordinary documentation of anomalous phenomena ever recorded. The recording showed that Kate had not died or become lost in the tunnel system, but had instead been displaced into what appeared to be an alternate version of New York City's underground infrastructure, a parallel reality where the city's development had followed a dramatically different path over the past several centuries. According to the helmet recordings, Kate had spent the 7 years since her disappearance exploring an extensive underground civilization that existed beneath an alternate version of Manhattan. This parallel New York featured massive subterranean complexes that combined architectural styles from multiple historical periods, suggesting that the underground construction she had discovered was part of a much larger project that had been ongoing for centuries. The recordings documented vast chambers, sophisticated transportation systems, and technological installations that seemed to blend historical craftsmanship with advanced engineering principles. Most remarkably, the recordings showed that Kate had encountered other individuals in this alternate underground realm, construction workers, engineers, and archaeologists from different time periods, who had apparently experienced similar displacement events throughout New York's history. These displaced workers had formed a community dedicated to understanding and maintaining the underground infrastructure they had found themselves trapped within. Kate's recordings revealed that the alternate underground system served a specific purpose, monitoring and stabilizing what she termed temporal stress points throughout Manhattan's geological foundation. According to her documentation, the rapid construction and development of New York City had created instabilities in the local space-time matrix, threatening to cause what could only be described as reality collapse events. The mysterious tunnel systems that archaeologists had been discovering were actually part of an ancient monitoring and stabilization network, possibly built by a previous iteration of human civilization that had faced similar challenges. The helmet's recordings documented Kate's gradual understanding of her situation and her efforts to find a way to communicate with her original reality. She had learned to operate some of the technological systems in the alternate underground, and had spent years attempting to create a stable dimensional bridge that would allow her to return home, or at least send a message to her colleagues and family. The helmet's appearance in the abandoned subway tunnel represented the culmination of these efforts, a carefully calculated dimensional transfer that had allowed her to send physical evidence of her survival back to her original reality. One of the most significant recordings was Kate's final message, clearly intended for her sister Rachel and her former colleagues. In this message, Kate explained that while she had found a way to send the helmet back, she could not return herself without risking the stability of both dimensional systems. She had become an essential part of the alternate reality's infrastructure maintenance team, and her departure could potentially cause catastrophic reality failures that would affect both versions of New York City. Kate's message also contained detailed technical information about the dimensional displacement phenomenon, including specific geological markers that could be used to identify other potential displacement sites throughout the city. She warned that continued construction work without understanding these markers could lead to more accidental displacements or even larger-scale reality destabilization events. Most importantly, she provided coordinates for what she called communication nodes, specific locations where messages could be transmitted between the parallel realities. Dr. Rachel Sullivan worked with a team of quantum physicists and geological engineers to verify the information contained in Kate's recordings. Using the coordinates provided in the helmet data, they located several of the communication nodes that Kate had described, finding them to be areas where electromagnetic readings showed the same types of anomalies that had been detected at the original displacement site. More significantly, the team was able to establish limited communication with Kate's alternate reality, confirming that she was alive and continuing her work in the parallel underground system. The communication sessions revealed that Kate had not only survived her dimensional displacement, but had become a leading expert in what her alternate reality colleagues termed reality engineering, the science of maintaining stability between parallel dimensional states. She had developed new technologies for monitoring dimensional boundaries and had helped prevent several potential reality cascade events that could have affected both versions of New York City. Kate's situation raised profound ethical and practical questions about the nature of rescue and return. While it might be technically possible to retrieve her from the alternate reality, doing so could potentially destabilize the dimensional barriers she had spent 7 years learning to maintain. The displaced workers in the parallel underground had become guardians of a crucial but invisible infrastructure, and Kate's role in their community was apparently essential to the continued stability of both realities. The discovery also had immediate practical implications for construction work throughout New York City. Using Kate's geological markers and warnings, city engineers identified dozens of locations where construction projects had unknowingly come close to triggering dimensional displacement events. New safety protocols were developed for excavation work in areas with unusual electromagnetic properties, and specialized monitoring equipment was deployed to detect the early signs of reality instability. The revelation that New York City's underground contained an active parallel reality infrastructure sparked intense scientific and philosophical debate. The evidence suggested that what most people considered to be solid, unchanging reality was actually a carefully maintained system requiring constant monitoring and adjustment. The mysterious tunnel systems that archaeologists had been discovering weren't historical curiosities but components of an ongoing project to maintain dimensional stability in one of the world's most densely developed urban areas. Dr. Rachel Sullivan established the Catherine Sullivan Institute for Dimensional Studies, dedicated to researching the implications of parallel reality engineering and developing technologies for safe interaction with alternate dimensional systems. The institute worked closely with the city's construction and engineering departments to ensure that future infrastructure projects would not inadvertently destabilize the dimensional boundaries that Kate and her colleagues were working to maintain. The ongoing communication with Kate's alternate reality revealed that similar dimensional stability issues existed in other major cities around the world, each with their own networks of displaced workers and engineers who had become unwitting guardians of reality's infrastructure. An international consortium was formed to study these phenomena and develop global protocols for managing dimensional stability in urban environments. Kate's family found a form of closure in the knowledge that she was not only alive, but was contributing to work of cosmic significance. While they mourned the loss of her physical presence in their lives, they took pride in her role as a protector of both realities. The regular communication sessions provided a way to maintain their relationship with Kate, despite the dimensional barrier that separated them. The helmet that had started this revelation became a symbol of the hidden connections between parallel realities and the unseen work being done to maintain the stability of existence itself. It was displayed at the Catherine Sullivan Institute as a reminder that reality was far more complex and fragile than most people realized, and that the safety of our world depended on the dedicated efforts of individuals working in dimensions most people couldn't even imagine. Kate's story transformed understanding of both New York City's history and the fundamental nature of reality itself. The city's underground infrastructure was revealed to be just the visible layer of a much more complex system that extended across multiple dimensions and time periods. Construction workers, engineers, and archaeologists working in the city's underground were trained to recognize the signs of dimensional instability and equipped with technology to safely navigate the hidden complexities of parallel reality engineering. 7 years after her disappearance, Catherine Sullivan had become something more than a missing person or even a survivor of an extraordinary accident. She had evolved into a bridge between realities, a guardian of dimensional stability, and a pioneer in a field of science that most people never knew existed. Her helmet's return to her original reality served not as evidence of a tragedy, but as proof that even the most impossible separations could be transcended by dedication, ingenuity, and love. The subway tunnels beneath New York City continued to carry millions of passengers every day, most of them unaware that their safe passage depended on the work of displaced engineers like Kate, who monitored and maintained the invisible infrastructure that kept multiple realities from colliding. Kate's story reminded everyone who learned it that the most important work is often done by people who can never be publicly recognized for their contributions, and that heroism sometimes requires sacrifices that extend beyond the boundaries of a single reality. In the end, Catherine Sullivan's disappearance during a routine subway construction project had revealed one of the most significant discoveries in human history: the existence of parallel realities and the delicate engineering required to maintain stability between dimensional states. Her sealed helmet, returned after 7 years of impossible journeys, contained not just evidence of her survival, but a new understanding of the universe itself and humanity's role in maintaining the complex systems that allow multiple realities to coexist safely. The young engineer who had vanished while investigating mysterious colonial-era tunnels had become the architect of a new science that would reshape humanity's understanding of existence itself. Her work continued in the spaces between realities, ensuring that the city she loved would remain stable and safe for generations to come, even as it existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions of space and time.